evening. I'm Maury Oken. I'm the president of Detroit Chamber Winds and Strings, and I get to welcome you tonight to another Nightnotes presentation. I'm really excited about this performance because we have four wonderful horn players, great musicians, great human beings, and I really believe you're going to enjoy this concert. I want to thank the three women who sponsor the Nightnotes series for us this year. It's Jane Conway, it's Mary Brevard, and it's Lynn Myers. I want to thank my friend Fran King for being the sponsor of this particular concert, and the Bowlbys, our friends Gwen and Dick Bowlby, who sponsor Scott Strong. I want to thank those people who had some trouble getting in tonight. I know there's been some problems as we've been changing our registration system. We bought a new ticketing system that we're going through. So we appreciate your patience, and it's going to be worth your wait to hear these people actually perform. If you have other friends, if you want to see this later, please know that we have this on our YouTube channel immediately following the concert. And so you can hear it then as well. And mostly we're looking forward to great performance. We'll start with some Mozart and Magic Flute. And please join me in welcoming Johanna Yarbrough, Kristie Crago, Natalie Fritz, and Scott Strong.
just heard was Mozart's Overture to the Magic Flute. Premiered along with the rest of the opera in 1791, the ensemble this wonderful work was composed for, surprisingly, it was not the horn quartet. We know it's hard to imagine it any other way, but I'm getting sidetracked. Welcome to our horn quartet Nightnotes concert. I've tried to bring a little bit of everything to this performance. Most notably, a lack of good sense and taste when it comes to two classical favorites. You've already heard one, which I'm very sad we have now ruined for you by performing it in this, I'm sure you'll agree, far superior way. Up next on our journey is something served without our normal side of blasphemy. In stark contrast with Mozart's master Singspiel, ripe with its Masonic elements and enlightened characteristics, we will now continue with Jan Koetsier's 5 miniatures, actually written for the horn quartet. What a concept. This is Koetsier's second quartet, and he had this listening advice for the 5 short movements. One could imagine the Little March as a parade of the ants, the Chant Sentimental as the song of an amorous tomcat, interrupted by indignant cats, the Scherzo as a little mouse ballet, the Valse Ironique as the dance of a duck ballerina, and the finale as the triumphant marching away of the whole menagerie. He added, The listener is also free to imagine any other scenario to the music. Isn't it lovely to have that kind of guidance? Enjoy Jan Koetsier's 5 miniatures. have been freed, and I don't mean my lovely colleagues, we have another travesty, a transcription from the opera world. This one is from Richard Wagner. It's important to note how important these two composers are for horn writing. Mozart, of course, wrote the 4 concertos for us and really gave us a solo voice in the orchestra world. Concertos have been written for us before, but with Mozart's reputation, it kind of helped us out a little bit. Wagner took the writing for horn and turned it up to 11, or at least 8, since his operas often call for 8 or more horns. All the more inappropriate, then, that we have this selection for you, where we whittle the entire orchestra down to 4 voices. James Wilcox is to blame, credit for this reduction. This section of the opera comes after Siegfried gets stabbed in the back by a former lover. Sorry, I should have given like a trigger warning. On performing this, I can only say I'm very grateful that this arrangement is only a bit of the opera and not the entire 6-hour endeavor. Here is Siegfried's Funeral March. I'm sad to say our program is coming to a close. And before I talk about our last offering, let me just say thank you to everyone involved in making this performance a possibility. This pandemic has hit so many people in the deepest and most profound possible way. And the opportunity to perform and have a little fun with such fantastic players has been a real joy in a time of profound artistic starvation. That said, buckle your seatbelts. This last piece is a ride to remember. Written by Kerry Turner, the lead horn and arranger of the American Horn Quartet, this piece has an intended story to consider while listening. Before I get to that, we had a few realizations while rehearsing this piece. Mr. Turner neglected to include the metronome part, which we found necessary at least for rehearsals. Also, there is a certain kind of peril when playing a piece written by an esteemed performer of your instrument. It's kind of like cooking for Gordon Ramsay. Keeping that in mind, here are the composer's words about the piece. At the opening of the piece, we behold a solitary red cloak lying motionless on the floor. A very slight breeze glides over the cloak, causing small ripples to form. Suddenly, a magic wind blows over the cloak, causing it to rise and fall, and eventually transform itself into a Spanish dancer. He, or she, is tall and proud, clothed in the spectacular costume particular to the dancers of Spain. We imagine a toreador or a flamenco dancer, and possibly even images from the tango or bolero. In short, it is a colorful, impressionistic representation of many famous Spanish dances. The dance reaches a climax, and the closing bars pound out the fandango rhythm in an almost frenzied fashion. At the very end, the magic spell suddenly departs, and the cloak falls lifeless to the ground. Thank you all for coming, joining us, watching, and please enjoy our last piece, Fandango by Kerry Turner.
Wow, that was so cool. Thanks so much for doing that for us. You must have been really tired when you got to the end.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Did you actually record those in that order?
Yes. It
Wow.
may have been a mistake, but yes.
But there was a lot of notes in a short period of time. It's funny. It's such a wonderful performance, and I'm going to ask a few different questions and encourage our friends to write in if they want to. But I have a bunch that I wanted to ask about because it's so interesting to hear so many notes. And what was so interesting about that to me was it's great music. It's well performed. And the one place that really stood out for me was the moment in the Wagner where it's like, this is what the four horns in the Wagner play, right? There's that one chorale when you get to it, it's like, oh my gosh, this is like Amazing. So you guys sounded so good at all of it. I'm curious, how much do you play together, the four of you? I mean, how weird is it for the four of you to be doing this together? Kristie.
Yeah. Sorry, I had to figure out how to unmute myself.
You did a great job.
Thanks. We play together regularly in terms of, over the past 3 or 4 years, we have all played on stage with the Detroit Symphony at various points. But as far as regularly in short periods of time, not so much. So this was a more intense, month of togetherness and practice for sure. We haven't ever played as a quartet like this before. So, but we all at least know each other's playing. So.
Yeah, it certainly sounded like that. I remember you all four played our performance of Sila back in August together and did such a great job on that. It's really different than doing this for sure. But I thought that was just such a great chance to hear you. Johanna, how much did you guys rehearse for this? And how did you rehearse for this? I mean, you have to be if you're socially distanced like this, you have to be in a big space, right?
Yeah, well, we sort of did the bubble option. So we were all kind of quarantining while we were rehearsing so that we were able to keep each other and ourselves safe. And we were not able, I think maybe we had one rehearsal in a big space, but for the most part, we kept in our personal homes to try to keep, the risk of exposure as little as possible. But yeah, rehearsing was definitely a challenge, and it was a commitment that we kind of made for each other over about a month, just to make sure that we tried to do everything as safely as possible.
Yeah, well, it's funny because it sounded tight. I wondered, Scott and Natalie, how weird it was to be playing music that's technically interwoven and be sitting so far apart from the people with whom you're playing it, right?
Yeah, I think that when we got into the church too, just with it being such a resonant space and the distance, It was interesting on the day of to kind of figure out, okay, how are we going to try to listen to each other and make sure that it sounds as together as it can.
Oh yeah, I mean, we even changed, I think, the way we would normally sit.
Yeah.
To make sure that we had sight lines for each other, because we needed the visual cues in order to play more.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you're what, 25 feet away from Natalie, right?
Yeah, don't listen, just watch.
Yeah, and even if you just watch, it's a long way apart. So I'm going to start with an easy softball question, I guess, and I'll go back to Kristie. Kristie, is there anything actually French about the horn?
Very little. The modern day horn is really modeled much more after the German horn that came up traditionally, from what was originally a natural horn and put into valves. So it's a misnomer. The United States is the only country that calls it French. Everywhere else in the world, it's just the horn.
Horn.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's kind of like French fries. It's not very French.
Yeah, sorry. I just wondered whether if we use the word French, are we considered to be so passé? And the answer is probably yes, right?
A little. It's okay. We know what everyone means. It's easier sometimes when you're talking to someone who's not a musician just to say the French horn, because
they know what it is.
You play the horn, the follow-up question is, which one?
Yeah, right, that's right.
It answers that question ahead of time. Right, but on stage, in a professional situation, we are referred to as the horns by the conductor.
Yeah. And Johanna, how often, I mean, you have a real great career, and you've been here, 10 years now or something? I mean, you started right out of school, more or less. And I'm wondering how often you actually play in horn quartets, and how different is it than playing in the orchestra? And maybe it's not, I don't know.
Yeah, the DSO horn quartet is quite active. We play together a few times a year, just the section and the Detroit Symphony. But it's always super fun to just get together. I mean, not to say that I'm not friends with my colleagues, but to get together with some of my other horn playing friends and make a new group. And sometimes, it exposes some things about your playing that you didn't know and opens your eyes to some other ideas and ways of playing the horn. So it can be really educational as well as very fun.
Yeah, one thing about being in Detroit, I've been here for a long time, and for a long time, there's been a great horn section here. It's kind of weird that it's been so good for so long. It's not a knock on any of the other sections, but the horn section's been really wonderful for a long, long time. So it's always a pleasure to go and hear the orchestra just for that. Scott, Natalie, I wonder, you played on the opposite ends of the spectrum there. Scott, you played first on all the pieces, and Natalie played fourth on all the pieces. I'm wondering how accidental that is. Is it that I'm wondering about? Are you more of a first player? Is Natalie more of a fourth player, or Natalie, are you more comfortable playing in the bottom? I mean, you had those incredible low notes in Magic Flute that made me laugh. Like, oh my goodness.
I would say playing low is something that I've worked on because I was so bad at it when I first started playing.
Wow.
But I don't think I would consider myself a low specialist. I think that most of us coming out of school these days feel like we really have to be able to do everything on the horn in order to work and be successful. And so I would say that that's pretty much true for me as well. I feel pretty comfortable everywhere, and I knew that playing fourth on this program would be a challenge for me, and so I was like, all right, I need a project, let's do this, and it was really fun.
Wow, I'm surprised. Not that I'm sure I've heard you play high beautifully, but you sounded great on the fourth horn.
Thank you.
So congratulations, Scott. You want to take the same question?
Historically, I think that the high and low horn positions were definitely more staying out of each other's business, and you had this the way the horn section in the orchestra is structured is often in pairs, and it's a high horn and a low horn and a high horn and a low horn. And people played and specialized in those ways. And I've always found high to be a little bit more natural. But yeah, as Natalie said, you kind of have to do it all now. For any audition, for any group, you're going to have to be able to play high and low.
And how different would it be? I'm wondering if we were actually at Hagopian, and if I would feeling like I had you would give me the license to do it, I would ask you to play one of those passages again and flip the parts. And if you did that, and so instead of playing 1, 2, 3, 4, you played 4, 3, 2, 1. Would I notice that the difference in timbre or the quality? I'm just curious about it.
With this group, I bet you wouldn't.
Yeah.
I trust all of these players so well to do any part that they're given in such a good way.
Yeah, I'm not talking about better or worse, because I know all four of you, and it sounds cloying, but these are four wonderful players, and we're happy to have any of you play for us. But I just wonder whether your ear hears it differently if you play first than if you play fourth, and if you imitate it differently. And it's much more pronounced in the horns than it is in the trumpets or the trombones. But bass trombone players playing a different instrument, but the first and the second trombone player are really interchangeable for the most part, but it's maybe not quite so much. I just wondered if you hear it in a different way.
I can speak to that a little bit, that when I got my job on fourth horn in the DSO, the week prior, I had played first on Mahler 5. And
wow.
So, not to use this opportunity to brag, but I think that you have to bring the confidence of a first horn player to every position in the horn section. And yeah, I think that when I studied in Europe, that's when I was introduced to this concept of being a high horn or a low horn player. And I don't think that that's necessarily as strong of a thing in our musical education here in the States.
Oh, that's interesting. Because I remember that one of the first times I noticed again, sorry to sound cloying, but what a wonderful player you were was when you first came into the orchestra, and in the first year or two, you played Beethoven Ninth, which has that great fourth horn solo that every fourth horn player either dies for or dies at, right? Because you're not used to that kind of exposure, right? And
yeah,
it was so beautiful. It's still in my head. What is
Thank you. But a lot of times first horn players steal that solo because
Right.
it's really such an expressive solo, and why would the fourth horn player need all that glory? But luckily, Carl believed in me. So
it was really quite wonderful. So, Scott, you said one thing that I was surprised about, which is I don't remember. I've had horn friends for a long time, but I don't remember ever hearing somebody play a concerto that came before the Mozart concertos. Is there really a body of work that's significant there?
Before the Mozart concertos, there's Telemann. There's quite a bit actually. The Telemann Forster, Leopold Mozart,
Haydn, wasn't that before?
Haydn wrote 2. I don't know if they were before or after.
Yeah. I just didn't remember. Kristie, I'm going to change gears for a second, and I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit because there's it's not uncommon to see on the screen here we have 3 wonderful female horn players, and there's nothing particularly unusual about that to me. But it's still within the world of the brass instruments an unusual thing that we see more horn players who are female than we do trumpets or trombone players. And I'm wondering why you think that is, and what attracted you to the horn particularly, and how that sort of feels to you.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't studied the root causes, but if I had to guess, I think that when kids are in school programs and they start on instruments, there's sort of kind of like a lot of societal tendencies. There are sort of implications made as to what girls should play and what boys should play. So I think that kids just
really
have adults inadvertently telling them, like, a boy comes along and they hand him a trombone, So, so I think there's some of that's still going on. It's definitely getting better. I mean, I think it's similar to, ethnic diversity in classical music. Like, I think that over time we are starting to figure out how to include a larger span of people in classical music, and in this case, a larger, a diversity of genders on the instruments. And for me personally, I was this like very ambitious, passionate, overachiever type of kid. That was just me personally, and I picked the horn because someone told me it was the hardest. So
wow,
that was that's why I picked it.
Like in the 5th grade, like as a kid.
Oh yeah. In fact, they didn't even start kids on horn in 5th grade, but I said I wouldn't play anything else, and I was stubborn. So, so I played horn. And I also wanted to play something different than everyone else. I think that was part of it too. I was like, all my friends were playing flute and clarinet. Here we go with all the gender stereotypes, right? And I was like, no, I don't want to play those instruments. Like, that was just too, I don't know what, ordinary to me. So, so that was, that was kind of my personal story. I think every horn player either has some story about that kind of wanting that extra uniqueness in the instrument, or they heard the instrument played by somebody. Because I think, honestly, you hear someone play the horn, and how can you not choose that instrument?
Well, they don't always sound like we sound on it, Kristie.
It's like a cool instrument,
Yeah, no, it is a cool instrument. I want to ask the same question to Johanna and to Natalie. What were you starting on the horn, and was it the same sort of experience? You're sort of a counterculture person in a way, or I'm just wondering.
I did start on the horn in 5th grade, and I think I must have heard it somewhere because I knew for sure that I wanted to play the horn, no matter what. And I was the only person in my class that played it. So I think I heard it. I must have heard a kids concert, maybe Peter and the Wolf, or something like that.
Wolf, that's what I was.
Yeah, I see. So I guess it will be a culture experience as well.
Yeah, and Johanna, I mean, you're the only female brass player in the DSO still, right?
Yeah, and I also chose the horn because my band director said it was the hardest instrument, and I've always been very gregarious in that way. But I think from speaking to some of my female predecessors, I think that they were explicitly told, like, this is a instrument for boys and this is an instrument for girls. And I don't necessarily count myself as someone who's like blazing trails here because I was never told that. I was just given an equal opportunity and I happened to choose this instrument. But some of these women who are older than me, I'm thinking of like Frøydis Vekre, who's this famous Norwegian horn player. She was told this instrument is for boys and she chose the horn anyways. And I think that that's so amazing and really like just really set the path for the three of us to be here making a career out of horn playing.
Yeah, she was a really famous teacher too. She taught like all these famous people, right? Everybody studied with her at some point. It's a really interesting story. I don't know. It's just there's nothing unusual to it to me. But I'm not the one female sitting in the world of male brass players in the back of the orchestra, so I don't really know what that feels like. And maybe it just doesn't. Maybe it's just not non-issue, which would be the best, I suppose, right?
It's a non-issue until it is. I mean, I've had a conductor refer to the gentleman of the brass section before. And, one of my male colleagues in the section went up to this conductor and said, that's not okay. There's a woman in the brass section. You should be more inclusive. And that act of standing up for me was like all I needed to feel like I was a part of the team.
Wow, that's a great story, and I don't know who the colleague was, but I could say him. It's got to be him credit for. Mm-hmm. Did the conductor react?
Yeah, he apologized and made this like big thing out of it, and it actually turned out to be very uncomfortable. The gesture was there. I think he made some changes after that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we're gonna wrap up. I did want to, Scott. I know there's family members here. Any greetings you want to give to anybody on the call? I don't know whose family members are here, but
absolutely. I mean, I think that my parents might be watching. So hi, mom and dad. I don't know about other people's family members, but I know we have another special shout out, and I want to say happy birthday to Colleen Coonert, a fellow horn player and also a member of the Chamberwinds family as Beth Ann's mother. So happy birthday, Colleen.
Thank you. Colleen was actually in my father's high school band. That's how long I've known Colleen. So thank you for that. Also, so I want to thank all four of you for giving us such a great musical experience and to thank our audience members for listening. We do have another Nightnotes coming up, which is on April the 9th. It's the saxophonist Tim McAllister, who is also incredible. He kind of like the saxophone god. This is a guy who, by age 40, won 4 Grammys on the saxophone with his duo partner, Liz Ames. And so please come back and join us for that. Also, to thank all of our sponsors for doing this and making this concert possible. And especially to thank the four of you for giving us such a great musical experience and sharing a little bit of your lives with us. So thank you all so much for coming. And you can watch us on YouTube. And I hope you enjoyed, and we'll look forward to seeing you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Mm-hmm.